Over the past 5 years of both teaching and living here in Dubai, I've had a range of different questions about what it's like. So in this video, I'm going to answer some of those questions to try and support you if you're considering the move. Have I gained any hobbies since moving to Dubai? I think some of the different hobbies that I had in the UK started to phase out because I had a lack of time. Now that I'm in Dubai and it's always sunny, I've gained a couple more different hobbies. But I've also been able to join a range of different clubs here too, to do with hobbies that I had from the UK, such as basketball. Now, when the weather is really sunny in the winter and it's beautiful weather, I also have picked up running as a little bit of a hobby. Maybe it's got something to do with me coming close to 30 and starting to care a little bit more about my heart. But it's something that I've become extremely interested in, and it's something that I've been able to really commit to do the Dubai Marathon. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do here in Dubai in terms of hobbies, especially being close to a beach, whether it's water sports, just going to the beach, pool activities, brunching. There's all sorts of different things that you can do and pick up as hobbies here too. Did I know anyone moving out to Dubai? The answer is no. I knew of people, and those were some of the first people I reached out to when I moved to Dubai. Funny story, one of those people is now my best friends, and that's some advice I would give you when you're moving out here, is to try and reach out to people who you know of, but also don't be afraid to say yes to everything so that you can go to different events, socialize, meet people, and eventually, fingers crossed, you'll meet your people. And those will be the people who you want to spend more time with in the future too. Do I recommend coming here to visit on holiday before moving here? This one's a little bit harder to answer because it depends on the person who you are. I know for me personally, it did help for me to come to Dubai on a holiday, to come and experience what it was like, what the culture was like, to go and do a range of different things and think, right, what can I really visualize myself living here? Now I get the opportunity to travel to lots of different places in the world, and I am extremely guilty of going to different places on holiday and going, yeah, I think I could live here, whether it's Bali, Sri Lanka, anywhere around the world. I'm like, yeah, Singapore, this is a really nice, safe. You have to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt and kind of think, right, I'm going to be here to live, not on holiday. So I won't be doing all of these grand, amazing things all of the time. However, coming here just gives you a little bit of a flavor. But for many people, they don't have to. Dubai is an incredibly convenient place. So moving here, although daunting, can be extremely easy in terms of transition. When does the academic year start, and when is the best time to look for jobs? Now, the academic year actually starts a tiny bit earlier here in Dubai versus the UK. Teachers tend to start coming into school around late August. It's around anywhere from the 20th, sometimes to the 27th. It's in that sort of last week of August-ish time. Newer teachers come in even earlier than that sometimes, depending on the school that you're going to. Now, in addition to that, you do actually get 1 week of transition time to then get yourself ready, get yourself organized for the children who then come in the week after, typically, depending on the school. In terms of dates for when schools start to hire, schools can start hiring as early as October, November if they know that their school has grown by a certain portion. Typically though, January to February is the typical time for when they advertise jobs, because by then they will know certain teachers are going to be leaving, and then they will need a certain amount of new teachers too. In addition to this, don't be confused or put out if job offers and job positions start opening up from April, May, June, because some people pull out, and then also schools get an influx of new pupils sometimes and think, right, we're going to need a new class and therefore a new class teacher. While we're on the process of getting jobs in Dubai, it's a perfect time for me to introduce my guide, which is this. This is available on my website, teachtraveltriumph.com. All of the different questions that I had when I was moving out to Dubai, I have answered in this guide. I've also researched and gathered lots of information from other teachers who went through the process to support you as much as possible. It's helped thousands of teachers to get jobs in Dubai now and around the UAE in general. I've also heard of some teachers using this to support getting jobs in Middle East and further afield too. So definitely check that out if you're interested, and I will leave a link in my description. What is the workload like for teachers in Dubai compared to the UK? I think for me, having taught in the UK 5 years ago, it's hard for me to look back and reflect and think, what was my teaching workload like then? I see, all the different fun things, all the highlights, but then I forget about the long night of marking. And it wasn't until recently going back home, my mum reminded me of some of those challenging nights that I had, and I'd be up late marking. But in Dubai, it works a little bit differently in terms of the workload. Your days are longer to start off with. You start early, 7 o'clock the school day starts, so you can imagine you get up early, and then at times you're in school until 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock, still doing work. Typically, I know personally, I don't have things like marking and extra lesson planning to do after school, but I know for some teachers that's not the case and they will have different bits and pieces to do after school. What I find is that there's these high pressure pockets of time throughout the academic year. As an example here, KHDA inspections, which happen every single year, are 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks of really high pressure time where you're doing lots of work at home, in school, at the weekends to try and make sure that everything's ready for this inspection. Should it be like that? Maybe not, but it's just how it is. On top of that, in private schools in Dubai, you have 2, sometimes 3 reports, 2, sometimes 3 parents' evenings a year. And as you can imagine, there's challenges that come with that too. So in terms of whether or not it's more or less, I'd say it's an interesting one. What is the planning like? So in terms of workload for planning, typically you find that schools out here in Dubai are massive. That's really supportive because what you find is that schools and year leaders will delegate pockets of people to do certain groups of planning. So for example, English will go for 1 teacher, maths another teacher, or 2 teachers for English, 2 teachers for maths, and then another teacher will do MSCS, which is a subject difference here in the UAE. And yeah, it's just delegated out. So in terms of planning, typically it's great because you're able to delegate that and it's supportive in that way. When it comes to KHDA inspection though, planning can be extremely intense and often you have to have formal written lesson plans that are 2, 3, sometimes 4 pages long. So there's an intensity that comes from that. However, for the most part with planning, you're able to delegate and therefore the workload is a little bit less. But if someone plans a lesson that you're not 100% with, then of course you have to adapt that so that workload is added there too. What is the max capacity of classes here in Dubai? Now, I find it interesting because different schools are unique. For some schools here in the UAE, it will be completely like the UK, 30, 31, sometimes 32, but for the most part, schools are private, and therefore one of the benefits of teaching or being a pupil in a private school is smaller class sizes. So I've had classes that are as large as 24, which is nothing compared to the 33 in the UK, but all the way down to 18, which is like 3 groups in the UK. So with that number, you're able to do loads of amazing things and support children in a range of ways. So it can completely depend on the school policies, and a range of different factors. Do you have many SEND, special educational needs and disability children in classes? Again, this completely depends on the school, but for the most part, yes. SEND and inclusion is a crucial part of schools here in the UAE, and it's important to make sure that children are included. As a result of this, there are specialist departments such as inclusion departments who have LSAs, more acronyms, which means Learning Support Assistants, or LSTs, Learning Support Teachers, who support children who have those additional needs. In addition to this, KHDA, who are the governing body here in Dubai, will also look for how those children are supported in terms of curriculum adaptations within your lesson plans and throughout the curriculum. Have you got ATA? Yes, I have ATA who I share with another teacher, and there's 2 amongst 5 teachers in my school at the moment. Different schools will have different ratios for this. Some schools will have 1 teacher, 1 TA, and again it depends on the age of the children, especially if you're lower down in Key Stage 1, typically it's 1 teacher, 1 TA, but again, what displays do you have in your classroom? Every school is going to have their own display policies that outline what your school environment will look like. In my classroom at the moment, I have my 3 core subjects, English, Maths and Science, and then I have a display board for MSCS, which is highly looked at by KHDA, and then I've also got something that relates to my topic and something that's a little bit more, growth mindset-y, my mentality. I also have a highlight board where we put different children who have got Star of the Week up, and that's me, but every school is going to look different. Some will require you to have other displays. Display lettering might need to be in Arabic. You'll have like English and then English but written in Arabic. They'll all look a little bit different, but for the most part you're looking at your core subjects and then also including EAL, but then Arabic lettering underneath that too. It really depends on the school. How do I know a legit job teaching ad versus a non-legitimate job teaching ad? And I think the answer to this is that it comes down to the person who's posting it. Now, sometimes you'll see recruitment agencies. You can validate whether or not the recruitment agency is legitimate, and then from there, utilize that to support you with it. For the most part, you're going to use websites such as ATTEST to find jobs. LinkedIn, because then you can back up where that person works. You might also find the odd Facebook group, such as the one that I have. I'll leave a link there, where people post jobs now and again, but then you can always find that person on LinkedIn, see whether or not they're in SLT. If the offer is too good to be true, it most probably is. And I find that a lot with jobs teaching in Dubai, is that you see something, you're like, oh, that sounds amazing, I'll go for that. But that's where the concern starts to come in. So just make sure that you can validate things. How do schools think about pastoral care? Do they employ counsellors? Yes. It's been fascinating for me how over the past 5 years, wellbeing has become a true focal point for inspecting bodies to look at how schools are catering to specific wellbeing needs. I know in my school over the past few years, we've had a counsellor who's been employed to support with that, and additional adults who also lead interventions to support with that too. It's also been interesting to see that we have wellbeing dogs and different animals who can also help children with specific needs and anxiety. Maybe it's taking them for a walk, just looking after them and just taking a break with those specific things. But yes, wellbeing is a really key, important part of Dubai schools. What was one of the biggest cultural shocks when I moved to Dubai? I think I'll give you two. I could make an entire YouTube video about this, but I'll give you two to go away with. If I've made the YouTube video by the time you're watching this, I'll leave a link up there. The heat is definitely one of them. You're going to step off the plane in August from a lovely sunny weather in the UK and then be hit by this 40+ degree heat, which means you're going to go from AC to AC. That gets better over time as you go into the winter months, but that is definitely an adaptation where it can be a little bit challenging and it's not something you will be used to. In addition to that, I think in terms of people, in terms of culture, convenience is absolutely one of them that you have to put on the list. There is a person or an app for everything. Whether it's going to the petrol station and the guy fills up your car, doing a food shop and someone packs your bags. It's not a big thing where they're expecting a tip. It's just part of the amazing convenience and service here in Dubai. Apps, there's loads of them, and you can get food delivered nowadays in just 15 minutes, which is crazy. What would a typical day look like at the weekend? Now, obviously, each weekend is going to be different, but a typical structure would be get up and have breakfast, whether that's going out or at home. Typically, if we go out and have breakfast out, we won't have lunch and dinner out, that makes sense. But let's say I have breakfast at home, I'll then try and do some exercise, whether it's at the gym or whether it's going on a bit of a run along Kite Beach. Sometimes if I do that, it's a really early run on Kite Beach. I love to see the sunrise during the weekend along Kite Beach. That's lovely. Then after that, go and get maybe a coffee or something along those lines, work on some of this YouTube-y type stuff. From there, maybe go on a little bit of a bike ride or pool or beachy type thing. If we didn't go out for a breakfast, we would go out for a late lunch / early dinner, and then come home, put on a film, a bit of a chill evening, maybe go on a walk around the neighborhood, something like that. Final one, you've maybe want to apply for international schools next year. It is a tremendous privilege to be in a position where I can answer a range of different questions and support people with things that they might need in terms of making a huge career and life move. And I want to thank you for taking the time to support this channel, everything that we do on here, and it's been a privilege to see how this has grown. This also brings me back to this guide. If you are interested in getting a teaching job in Dubai, this is available on my website, teachtraveltriumph.com. It is truly appreciated, all of the different support it's had in the past, and I can't recommend that enough. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to like it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so you don't miss out on any further content, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Until then, I'm out.